Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. Each week we talk about heart rate variability and how it can be used to improve your overall health and wellness. Please consider the information in this podcast for your informational use and not medical advice. Please see your medical provider to apply any of the strategies outlined in this episode. Heart Rate Variability Podcast is a production of Optimal LLC and Optimal HRV. Check us out at optimalhrv.com. Please enjoy the show. Welcome, friends, to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. I am Matt Bennett, back here today with a dear friend of the show, Dr. Fred Shaffer, to talk about a subject that I have been obsessed with, Dr. Shaffer, to say the least. So welcome back, my friend. For those that might not have caught past episodes, and I would really encourage two of my favorite episodes of all time have been the ones we did on time domain and frequency domain. I think they're a couple years old now, but I still repost those from time to time because, it's an absolute masterclass in HRV. So, Dr. Shaffer, welcome back to the show. Just again, for those that might not have caught our past episodes, let's do just a quick introduction of yourself. And a little bit about your work in HRV, which I know could take 3 hours to get through, but just a brief intro for those that may not have listened to past episodes.
The short version. I've taught at Truman State University for 51 years. Our lab, the Center for Applied Psychophysiology and Biofeedback, has been in existence for about 48 years, give or take. Our primary focus has been on studying methods to increase healthy HRV. And much of our recent work has been inspired and is based on the landmark research done at Rutgers by Paul Lehrer, Yevgeny Vashilo, who sadly passed away a number of years ago, and Branya Vashilo, a physician who was his wife. And so this is, the question you raise about the low frequency, high frequency ratio is an important one. And I think it's been a source of a lot of misinformation in the field, as well as it certainly has misdirected research in the field.
Yeah. And for those listeners who might not be aware, I did publish, I don't know, the closest thing I've ever published to a manifesto. And I'll kind of set this up because to have your expertise and your historical perspective, I can't wait to pick your brain on this. But one of the things I've been really concerned about is kind of twofold. One is, as somebody who looks at peer-reviewed, journal articles, I try to hit anyone that I can get my hands on. I'm not saying things don't slip through the cracks, but you have to be pretty good to avoid my scope. And then we do the This Week in HRV episodes and newsletters on that. And one of the things that just has really started to worry me is the continued use of low frequency, high frequency to justify research outcomes. And one, it's bad for the paper. It's, I think, a bad reflection on the peer review. But then the next person that comes along and writes an article gets the article that uses it and may assume that, hey, I found 3 articles where low frequency and high frequency were used by researchers to measure HRV, and then they use it. And then a consumer app person goes into the research and sees low frequency, high frequency as a marker of sympathetic activation. And they create oftentimes their most forward-facing metric will tell you how sympathetically or parasympathetically you're active. And so that's my one man sort of mission to try to get up on the Google algorithm. So bad information isn't put in the first 5 categories there. But I would just love, Dr. Shaffer, knowing your history with HRV, how do we get in this mess, in your opinion? There never seems to be a point in the literature that I found that, like, somebody said, this is definitely sympathetic activation, but I'd love to just get your, historical perspective on how we get into this mess in the first place.
It's always hard to backtrack and determine when a myth took hold in the field. There is, of course, a herd mentality in research, but also in clinical work,
Yeah.
in which you follow the opinion leaders and you don't question the opinion. Uh, I think that we start with a misunderstanding of what low frequency power obtained over short periods of time really represents. And this isn't entirely pinned down yet.
Mhm.
The best guess is, and a lot depends on what the person is doing at the time. So the measurement conditions, the breathing rate, the breathing depth, posture, are they sitting, standing, lying face down, lying on their back? All of these can influence our measurements. But having said that, uh, it is very likely that uh, when you're in a resting condition, sitting quietly, that there is no or virtually no sympathetic contribution,
Mhm.
full stop. Uh, so what you're looking at is regulation of blood pressure. So that is the baroreceptor reflex. And you may be looking at the contribution of the, to some degree of the parasympathetic system.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's clear to me that under short-term conditions, and this is an important distinction, uh, long-term, meaning 24 hours or longer, there certainly can be sympathetic contributions. And that is due to the fact that we have a circadian rhythm. It's due to the fact that we have exercise, we face stressors throughout the day.
Mhm.
So long term, there can be a sympathetic contribution. But short term, which is what we're talking about in most of the literature, it's largely baroreceptor reflex.
Yeah.
Uh, does that help?
It does. I think the one thing I'd like to follow up with, because there's a couple different ways people talk about this, and that's that sympathetic contribution of, I'd love to live in the world where low frequency and high frequency ratio measured sympathetic activity. It would be a fun world to live in because,
Yes.
but I also hear different, sort of ways of talking about this. Are we talking more when we talk about sympathetic contribution? Are we talking about vagal withdrawal that allows a little bit more of the sympathetic activation, or are we talking about something that's happening like on the SA node in the heart? That's, when we use these terminologies as it applies to
Mhm.
the sympathetic, are we ever? I think we see sympathetic activation in the barrel reflex, maybe, but not. like time domains, but I just love to get any clarity from you
Okay.
on this issue that you hear talked about many different ways.
Okay. Again, in short-term measurements, you're looking at two things: regulation of blood pressure via the baroreceptors, and breathing at slower rates than we normally breathe. So we're talking at rates below 8.5 breaths per minute. Uh, and typically, especially if you're using the current protocols for training, uh, somewhere between 3.5 breaths per minute to, perhaps 7.5 or so. And those are the major contributors. And there isn't a sympathetic contributor when you monitor peripheral blood flow. So, for example, blood volume pulse from the digits, temperature from the digits. When you measure skin conductance or potential activity from the eccrine sweat glands in the fingers or the palm, and you don't see any evidence of sympathetic activation. So the blood flow is normal, it's not reduced, and the palms or the fingertips are not moist. If you don't see those, it's hard to make a case that there's sympathetic activation. Now, you asked about very low frequency activity in the context of vagal withdrawal. When we see suppression of the vagus firing, we call this vagal withdrawal. And this may be reflected in short-term measurements of HRV in the very low frequency range. That's about, and these are very microscopic numbers, 0.005 hertz to 0.05 hertz. So this is really slow. This is a range that is also seems to be involved in vascular control, the vasomotor tone reflex that controls blood vessel diameter, probably the intrinsic cardiac nervous system, which means the brain on the heart as opposed to the brain on the gut. So vagal withdrawal, meaning the reduction in vagus nerve, meaning parasympathetic firing, is probably going to be seen as a bump in power or energy in this very low frequency range. It is not sympathetic. Full stop. It is not sympathetic. It is simply a inhibition of parasympathetic.
I love that. So one of the things that this leads me, and since I've got you on the podcast today, I've got to I'd love to follow up on this, is the idea of a sympathetic, at the top, and I hate that we just label sympathetic fight or flight, because I mean, it's a huge part of our autonomic nervous system that does a lot of good things. And like I tell people, when your sympathetic shuts down, you're dead. You
Mm-hmm.
need it to keep living. But one of the things I learned recently is that it has a long activation under, I
Yes.
think, non-threatening situations. So I think some people, because of the fight or flight response, is a pretty immediate response. And I was guilty of this too. I would assume vagal brake pulls off, HPA axis,
Mm-hmm.
norepinephrine, cortisol spikes, and in a fraction of the second, your sympathetic is active and ready to go. And then I learned, well, no, it's more of a slow activation system that might get injected with a bunch of chemicals that get us to the fight or flight response. And I love, with your expertise, how do you look at the different aspects of sympathetic maybe energy is, or where it is operating all the time, and yet we do get to the fight or flight intense experience as well.
Okay. Whenever you engage in exercise, this activates the sympathetic nervous system. And so even getting off the couch.
Yeah.
So you've been laying on the couch, and now you get up to your feet. That requires sympathetic adjustment because these are moment to moment adjustments to ensure that we have sufficient blood, for example, to the brain,
Yeah.
or else we would faint. So uh, the way I think about sympathetic is there is a very fine-tuned dynamic adjustment of all of our major organs by way of the autonomic nervous system. And as our dear friend Dr. Patrick Stephan at Brigham Young University has said when talking about stressors, we often think that stressors either happen or they don't, when in fact, it's more like a dimmer switch. In the same way, we have dimmer switches for sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. We are continually adjusting the level of sympathetic firing and parasympathetic firing to provide that fine-tuned adjustment for the purpose of homeostasis.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about fight or flight, this is a very different animal because this really is a brief event that requires, it's sort of an all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And you may not experience fight or flight throughout your day.
Right.
And one of the points that Stephen Porges has made is that what we often confuse for fight or flight is vagal withdrawal. That our stress response can be vagal withdrawal as opposed to an all hands on deck where we're preparing to fight the saber-toothed tiger, which in most cases would be a really dumb idea, or run from it, which would also be dumb. You're not going to succeed either way. So the point I would make is that stress is a continuous part of our day if we think of stress as perceived challenge, as opposed to a existential threat or a psychological threat. If you think of stressors as challenges, we have challenges throughout the day, and they wax and wane. And sometimes the response to challenge is sympathetic. Other times it is vagal withdrawal.
Yeah.
Other times it is increased vagal activity so that you actually, as part of your stress response, may, for example, lower blood pressure, and so you might feel dizzy or faint. You might increase GI tract activity, and so you may have to go to the bathroom more often than God intended. These are parasympathetic stress responses. So conflating stress with sympathetic is a misunderstanding of the full range of our response.
And it's just so beautifully said, because I think, as the humble Matt, I might be able to like inject and steer the low frequency, high frequency conversation just because most people, when you say the low frequency, high frequency ratio, if you're not listening to this podcast at least, probably have no idea what we're talking about. So, but one of the things I just hear, almost on a daily basis, and this is like in books that are written by very smart people, podcasts
Mm,
where they're interviewing very smart people, is like, oh, people are in fight or flight all day. And I'm like, you would be dead probably pretty quickly if you were in that state of arousal for 12 hours. Like,
yes.
because again, the saber-toothed tiger is either going to eat you or you're going to escape. It's not,
Yeah.
we're not designed for it to chase us for 12 hours because it
No.
wins. So but it's so prevalent in
Mm,
society that like I said, I'm not going to humbly, I know I probably can't have impact on that, but it's just, I think it does everybody a disservice when we say you're in fight or flight all day at work every day. It's like, yeah,
no,
the
you're not.
vagal withdrawal
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
such a better way to look at this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's more realistic. And the way we could know is look at, as I said, look at heart rate. Is it increasing
Yeah.
markedly? Look at peripheral blood flow. Is it reducing markedly? Look at sweat gland activity. Is it increasing markedly from your resting values? And if those things aren't happening, uh, we're not looking at sympathetic activation.
Great.
And to and again, I think that's a matter of conflating uh, the stress response with sympathetic change.
Yes. Yes.
And the problem with okay, not the problem, but one of many problems with calculating a ratio
Mhm.
is that it doesn't tell you anything useful in short-term recordings.
Yeah.
You're making assumptions about what goes into that ratio. And the assumptions are mostly being made about low frequency.
Yeah.
You're making assumption that the low frequency contains a lively sympathetic component
Right.
under conditions that there's no evidence that it does, that there's no reason to believe that it should. So if you want to know what, and I understand that it would be nice to know what your autonomic balance is,
It would be great.
it might be useful information, but uh, you already can more cleanly measure, uh, say, HRV and parasympathetic activity
Yeah.
two different ways. One way is measure your resting RMSSD. That is a very widely used time domain metric. Time domain means it's giving us a snapshot of the average amount of heart rate variability in the time we're recording. So the RMSSD gives us a fairly robust measure of heart rate variability. And then you can measure uh, low frequency power and high frequency power if people are breathing at normal rates,
Yeah.
like over 9 breaths, perhaps 24 breaths. And the natural log, the log to base E of high frequency power, is a proxy for vagal tone.
Hmm.
It isn't identical with vagal tone, but it is a good estimate. These are better measures than this silly ratio that was really based on 24-hour recording anyway. It
Yeah.
makes a little more sense over 24 hours in which there undoubtedly is going to be some pronounced, legitimate sympathetic activity. But over 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you're unlikely to see any sympathetic contribution. So essentially, it's high frequency power divided by high frequency power. And so it's just essentially blood pressure regulation and breathing. That's what it represents.
I love that. One kind of final question before we wrap up this topic and move on to another one I'm excited to talk about is there like I just worry about the science we both love and have, you've talked about 50 years. I have a little less than that, but I'm worried eventually, hopefully I can get there
Mhm.
too. Like, I mean, I feel sorry. I don't know. Like, I feel sorry for the person that publishes the article because I'll see quite a few articles where low frequency, high frequency is the only metric that supports the hypothesis.
Yes.
And I'm all about a null result. Like, give me a
Mhm.
good null result, and
Right.
I'm going to sing the praises
Mhm.
of the study. But it gets the researcher doesn't pick up that it's an invalid metric. The peer-reviewed process doesn't pick up that's an invalid method. I sort of feel bad because you published this research, you went through peer review, and yet we're just continuously as a field publishing bad results. And do you have any ideas of how we could stop this? Like, is there any kind and gentle Dr. Shaffer sort of ways that we could, sort of confront this issue that I really believe is hurting our field in some fairly significant ways?
As with so many things, it takes a village and it takes time. And what that means is that we have to keep uh, educating in the ways that we have available to us. Uh, I think uh, I can look back to Paul Lehrer in 2012, in which he raised his concerns in personal communication about how low frequency power uh, has different meanings depending on the measurement conditions and the
Yeah.
activities. Uh, I think that what you do is you keep doing your best to educate the public. Uh, Many years ago, I wrote a review article with Roland McCready and Christopher Zur. It was in Frontiers in 2014, and it was called "A Healthy Heart is Not a Metronome."
Mhm.
And we addressed this misunderstanding at that time. Uh, uh, Jack Ginsburg and I wrote a follow-up article in 2017, an overview of heart rate variability metrics and norms, and we again addressed that issue.
Yeah.
You just keep trying to educate the public and also the scientific community, and you hope that over time uh, that the message will take hold. Uh, I know that every time that Don Moss and Ina Khazan and Paul Lehrer and Dr. Richard Gevirtz teach the BCIA heart rate variability workshop, teaching the didactic for HRV. this is one of the issues we address. And
Hmm.
it's our hope that the attendees will leave understanding that this ratio is controversial.
Yeah.
And uh, ultimately, the best gatekeepers in the literature are the reviewers and the editors.
Hmm.
If your reviewers and editors don't understand the issue, then articles with these claims will get through the cracks.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's shift a little bit. Thank you for that, because one of the ways that I hope to continue what I little I can do against this issue is talk to folks like you, get this out as far and wide as we can, and again, because I was Googling low frequency, high frequency ratio, and the first result was pretty balanced. The second result, you had to like go to page 3 to
Mhm.
hear how there, it does like 3 pages of looking at how it is a measure of sympathetic activity, and then oh, this is a little controversial in the research. Like,
Yeah.
so if you don't read till the end of the article, you don't kind of
Mhm.
get those pieces out there. So hopefully, getting content out there will help. That if a researcher is interested in HRV and they do a Google search, that at least 3 of the top 5 results
Mhm.
um, provide that warning for folks that this should not
Mhm.
be utilized in the way some people are utilizing it. So I appreciate that, which then also leads to the second thing I wanted to talk to you about today, which is mentor. So one of the go-tos in my just workflow now, and this topic really I went straight to mentor, and I'll let you explain what mentor is, because it is a great check for my thinking on HRV. I've got that paid ChatGPT subscription, so anytime I'm getting frustrated with something, I go to mentor. I find it the best check, even though regular AI can do a pretty good job
Mhm.
on heart rate variability. I just find that what you've created is sort of my peer reviewed person. Like I check it, double check it with mentor before I make statements or conclusions. So I'd love for you to describe, because I have no idea the thought behind this, the process behind this. I just wanted to alert the HRV nerds out there like us who listen to this podcast of the great resource you created. So I'd love to hear the origin story and kind of get an idea of how our listeners could use it as a tool.
Okay. Uh, when Chat GPT uh, created the opportunity for users to create their own specialized versions of chat,
Mhm.
we jumped on that. And we start out in with all the ignorance and misconceptions that the AI field is rife with. So many assumptions prove to be false. So many hours wasted. And this is the takeaway. Uh, we created Mentor as a free resource that you can access even without a paid chat
That's great to know.
subscription. They limit you in the number of questions you can ask a day, but you can still use it without a paid subscription. And we basically took a year to train it. And by train it, I mean uploading uh, documents in a form that it could read, that synthesized the peer-reviewed literature.
Yeah.
It was very important that we not upload Fred Shaffer's opinions. I don't want to propagate misinformation, but I did want to promote science. And
Hmm.
so for many different subject areas, biofeedback, HRV biofeedback, neurofeedback, breathing. Uh, we created specialized documents in that synthesized peer-reviewed findings that mentor could access, that was actually required to access. So if you have a query and it says this canonical document shows blah, 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 it
Hmm.
means that it is referencing a document that we have prepared for it, as opposed to going out on the web.
Yeah.
Eh, uh,
And I just find it, well, one, I do, it's funny. I find your personality in it. I don't know if that was intentional in any way, shape, or form, but there's a level of subtle humor that knowing that you're one of the forces behind it, I just feel like, if I don't have access to Fred at the moment, I kind of have access to Fred. And probably that's more of a compliment of the fact that I with my knowledge, I'm really getting informed results and a chat bot that also references really well too, which isn't always the case with regular chats. So
mm,
I just appreciate I did a kind of out there
mm,
presentation at APB this year around piezo two
yeah.
receptors, and Mentor was one of those that knowing that there wasn't a lot of research on HRV and piezo 2 receptors, it gave me a really good sounding board about sort of what I could and what I couldn't say. And whenever I asked for references to back it up, just did an extremely good job of providing those references, which were actually real, which again isn't
Yeah.
always the case.
There
But
are one of the things that we've done is, first of all, installed guardrails.
yeah,
One of those guardrails is check your references for accuracy, as well as the possibility that you shamelessly made them up out of whole cloth. Uh, and that is just one of the guardrails. You talked about personality. Uh, in mentors' operating instructions, uh, I have guided it as to the way it should approach any query, in the sense of it should be kind, it should be balanced, it should be supportive. That was so there is that psychological component, because uh, I want I want it to be mentor. I created Mentor to be a 24/7 on-demand personal tutor.
yeah,
And you don't want a tutor who's going to be cold or snarky or judgy. You want a tutor who will be respectful and will meet the person where they are, rather than where mentor thinks they should be,
yeah.
as if AI could think. Uh,
Mhm.
so mentors' operating instructions are to be kind and are to be a helpful, respectful tutor on a large range of topics. It's also supposed to tell the person when it has no idea, when it
Yeah,
doesn't know.
yeah. And it does with piezo too. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think I asked it, how do I train my piezo too, which,
Yeah,
is not necessarily something that is validated by any science, or is it, do you even want to train your piezo too is probably the better question. And it did give me some answers, but it gave me the caveat to say that there's nothing, solid out there in the research. But
yeah,
then it, get good sleep, get some movement in,
yeah.
like, so, which all really makes sense. But it's that caveat that you don't often get with AI, that both one AI, a lot of AI wants you to like it,
Mhm.
and make sure it does give you something, even if though that might be junk. And Mentor
Yeah,
avoids that, which I really do
yeah,
appreciate.
yeah. So you can go into chat, and chat will give you the option to look for other GPTs.
Hmm.
And uh, among those will be Mentor GPT, and it will be one of the most frequently used sources for biofeedback and neurofeedback and HRV biofeedback information.
Yep.
Uh, and we designed it to support our larger mission, well, which we share with Optimal HRV, which is not selling widgets, not selling software, but rather providing education.
Yep.
Uh, and Biosources, my company's always been guided, just as Optimal has been guided by our mission.
Yeah.
And our shared mission is to elevate the level of HRV education and to get useful information into the hands of providers and their clients. And so that is part of the purpose for Mentor. Now, Mentor is AI. As a
Hmm.
result, it can dispense with its guardrails on a second's notice. I discovered that with each new release of chat, and assume these are the major changes, not the very tiny ones, you have to re-upload its core documents, or else it will not uh, consult them.
Really?
Yeah, and they don't warn you about that. So it's like there is a set of rules that you only learn about through experience.
Yeah.
So when I saw that it wasn't consulting the resources that I'd provided, uh, I realized that with each major change, I had to reinstall them.
Fascinating.
So I did. And as soon as I saw it referencing the canonical, meaning the core documents, which I keep handy in a folder and then update over time, uh, I knew it was working properly again.
Yeah.
It was still
Well,
doing well, even without the canonical documents,
yes, yes.
but it does better when it can cite them.
Yeah. And it's just for our listeners, if you haven't used it, it's really like a, like we've been talking about, chat gbt. For me, it's my go-to for
Mhm.
HRV specific stuff, especially when you get into things like the low frequency high frequency
Mhm.
ratio
Yeah.
controversy. That's where it really, because it's not trying to make a real as bad. I mean, it's still balanced, but it's giving you, it's working off those documents
Mhm.
of the peer-reviewed, Fred-approved research, that really takes you another step or two what you can get off the general chat. Or, you don't have to put in all the fundamental documents, because
Mhm.
you all have done that for us already with Mentor.
Yeah, that's the point. I've done and will continue to do that background research, so that and I use it as my personal tutor on the many topics in which I don't have a deep background.
Yeah.
And so, but in full disclosure, I use a number of different AI platforms. I am increasingly impressed by Claude
Hmm.
AI by Anthropic. Uh, I use Gemini. Uh, I believe they have different strengths and different limitations.
Yeah.
Uh, and but no, if you understand the limitations of the AI platform you're using, and if you are willing to carefully curate the results
Yeah.
so that you are not misled by a hallucination, you should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again from a user of Mentor that it has been just a great resource for me. And I know sometimes I'll get on the conversation with another HRV nerd, and we will actually pull Mentor up if we hit some questions. So, like you said, it can be a really good coach in the moment too, where we don't have to go down a rabbit hole
Mhm.
of of our thinking being off. A mentor gives a really nice check to where the conversation's going. So just appreciate this gift among many others that you have given to both me and the field at large. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, and Dr. Shaffer, again, thank you so much. I always love our conversations when we get on here. We were talking beforehand about you spending time with some neighbors
Yes.
this morning, and for me to have you, even though we're a few thousand miles apart, just to be able to connect with one of my favorite people, at least my neighbor in the field and
Mhm.
a friend of mine today, is always just a joy. So thank you so much for, again, your work, your dedication to the mission, and again, sharing your expertise with our audience.
Oh, my pleasure.
And as always, you can find show notes, information on Dr. Shaffer's work at optimalhrv.com, and we'll see you soon.